The evening shift at Celestine, one of LA's hidden gem restaurants in Koreatown, moved with the precision of a well-rehearsed ballet. Rebecca Williams wiped down table 7 for the third time, her movements mechanical, efficient, deliberately empty of emotion. At 24, she had perfected the art of being present without really being there. A smile that ended at her lips, eye contact that lasted exactly long enough to be polite, and a wall around her heart built brick by brick over 3 years of grief. She noticed him immediately, not because he looked dangerous, but because he looked lost. The elderly Korean man sat at table 12, his weathered hands trembling slightly as he pointed at the menu, trying to communicate with Jason, the meal server who was growing increasingly flustered. Rebecca watched the man's fingers move, not random gestures, but deliberate signs. He was deaf. Every instinct told her to look away, to stay in her lane, to not get involved. Getting involved meant caring. Caring meant pain. But something in the man's gentle, patient expression cracked through her defenses. Before she could stop herself, Rebecca set down her tray and walked toward table 12. "Sir," she signed, her rusty movements slow but clear, "do you have food allergies?" The man's face lit up like sunrise breaking through storm clouds, and in that moment, Rebecca had no idea she'd just stepped into a world that would shatter every wall she'd built. Welcome, everyone. This is Cinedate Noir. Stay connected, y'all. The honey cookies appeared on Tuesday. Rebecca found them awaiting at her station when she arrived for the evening shift. A small paper bag tied with twine, her name written in careful, deliberate English on a card. Inside, the golden pastries gleamed with traditional Korean yakgwa patterns pressed into their surfaces. The handwriting on the note was shaky but determined. "Thank you for seeing me. Your kindness is a gift I had forgotten existed. Your boyfriend's back." Maria, the hostess, sang out with a grin, nodding toward table 12. Jinwoo sat in the same seat as last week, his weathered hands folded patiently on the white tablecloth, waiting. "He's not," Rebecca started, but Maria had already glided away to seat a couple by the window. Rebecca tucked the cookies into her apron pocket, their weight somehow both comforting and unsettling. She'd spent 3 years perfecting the art of keeping people at arm's length. Customers got exactly what they needed: efficient service, polite smiles, zero emotional investment. That was the deal she'd made with herself after Jasmine's funeral. No connections meant no new wounds. But Jinwoo's face when she'd approached his table last week, that sunrise breaking through clouds expression, had haunted her dreams. She smoothed her apron and walked to table 12. Jinwoo's eyes lit up the moment he saw her, and something in Rebecca's chest cracked a little wider. "Good evening," she signed, her rusty movements slow but clear. "Good evening." His hands moved in response, fluid and expressive. She caught maybe half of it, something about being happy, about hoping to see her again. He pointed to the menu, then spelled out slowly, R-E-B-E-C-C-A. She nodded, feeling heat rise in her cheeks. He'd remembered her name. Over the next 2 weeks, Jinwoo became a fixture. Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, always the same table, always alone, always requesting her section. He ordered simply, bibimbap, mild, green tea, no sugar, and every visit he brought something small: a book of Korean folk tales with pictures, a package of traditional ginger candies. Once, a small notepad and pen so they could write to each other when her limited signing failed. "Why does he keep coming alone?" Rebecca asked Maria during a quiet moment, watching Jinwoo carefully unfold his napkin. Maria shrugged. "Heard from the kitchen staff he's got family, rich family, but he likes the independence, I guess. Likes being treated like a regular person instead of someone's fragile father." The words landed somewhere deep. Rebecca understood that better than she wanted to admit. The desire to be seen as whole, not broken. Not the girl whose sister was murdered, not the survivor everyone pitied. That night, after Jinwoo left with his usual gentle wave, Rebecca sat in her apartment and pulled out her laptop. She found herself searching. Advanced Korean Sign Language. Lessons. She told herself it was just professional development, but when she practiced the sign for friend in her bathroom mirror, her reflection smiled back. Small, tentative, but real. The black Mercedes first appeared on Tuesday night. Rebecca noticed it parked across from her apartment building when she got home from her shift. Sleek, expensive, windows tinted so dark they looked like pools of ink. She told herself it was nothing. LA was full of expensive cars. But Wednesday night, it was there again. Same spot, engine off, waiting. 24, she had perfected the art of being present without really being there. A smile that ended at her lips, eye contact that lasted exactly long enough to be polite, and a wall around her heart built brick by brick over 3 years of grief. The black Mercedes first appeared on Tuesday night. Rebecca noticed it parked across from her apartment building when she got home from her shift. Sleek, expensive, windows tinted so dark they looked like pools of ink. She told herself it was nothing. LA was full of expensive cars. But Wednesday night, it was there again. Same spot, engine off, waiting. She knew immediately he was connected to Jinwoo. Not just because of the resemblance, the same elegant bone structure, the same careful posture, but because of the way he moved. Jinwoo carried gentleness like a well-worn coat. This man wore power like a second skin. He was tall, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, and when he scanned the dining room, his gaze moved with predatory precision. It landed on her and stopped. Maria seated him in her section, of course. "Water, please," he said, his English accent-free but formal, "and the galbi, medium rare." "Of course." Her pen hovered over her notepad. "Anything else?" "Yes." His dark eyes fixed on her face with unsettling intensity. "How long have you worked here?" The question felt like a scalpel, precise and probing. 6 months. "And before that?" Her pulse quickened. "Is there a problem with the service, sir?" "Not at all." He leaned back slightly, still watching her. "I'm simply curious. My father speaks very highly of you. I wanted to meet the woman who's been so kind to his father." The floor seemed to tilt beneath her feet. "Jinwoo is your father." "He is." Something flickered in his expression, protective, assessing, dangerous. "Do you know what I am, what my family does?" "I can guess." "Then you understand why I needed to know if you were genuine or if someone sent you to get close to his father." He paused. "I've spent 2 weeks investigating you. Your credit score, your volunteer history, your sister's death, even your coffee order." Rage and fear warred in her chest. And you're exactly what you appear to be, a good person who's been through hell and trying to survive it." He leaned against the table. "My father hasn't smiled like that since my sister died 10 years ago. She was deaf too. Car accident. He blamed himself for not being there. Something in Rebecca's anger deflated. She saw it now, the mirror between them. 2 people trying to protect what remained of their broken families. "I don't want anything from him," she whispered. He reminded me of someone, of what I used to do before you decided it was safer to not feel anything." Lehman's voice was gentle now, understanding. "I know that survival strategy. I live it." Their eyes met, and Rebecca saw her own grief reflected back. "This world killed my sister. I can't be part of it." "Then don't be part of the world." He handed her a card with a phone number. "Be part of his life. That's all he wants." Rebecca managed 3 days of polite distance before Jinwoo appeared at the restaurant with tears in his eyes. He stood at the hostess stand, looking smaller somehow, his shoulders curved inward. Maria was trying to seat him, but he kept shaking his head, his hands moving in agitated signs Rebecca couldn't quite read from across the room. "He's asking for you," Maria called out, her voice concerned. "Says he won't sit until he talks to you." Every instinct screamed at Rebecca to run. This was exactly what she'd been avoiding: emotional entanglement, complicated connections, the risk of caring about someone who existed in a world of violence. But Jinwoo's expression was so lost, so genuinely hurt, that her feet carried her forward before her brain could object. "I'm here," she signed, the movements shaky. His hands flew, faster than she could follow. She caught fragments. Confused. Did I offend? Please tell me. Rebecca grabbed her phone, opening the translation app with trembling fingers. She typed, "You didn't do anything wrong. I'm sorry I've been distant." He took the phone, his weathered fingers moving slowly across the screen. "My son told me he scared you, that you know what our family is. I understand if you want me to leave." The words blurred as Rebecca's eyes stung. She typed back, "I lost someone, to violence. It's hard for me to be close to anyone connected to that world." Jinwoo's face crumpled. He typed for a long time, then turned the screen toward her. "I lost my daughter 10 years ago. Heijin. She was deaf like me. Car accident. I wasn't there to protect her. Every day I wake up and the first thing I remember is that I failed her. When you signed to me, when you saw me as a person and not a burden, it was the first time in years I felt like I was still someone's father, someone worth seeing." He pulled out his wallet with shaking hands and showed her a photo. A young woman with a bright smile, making a heart-shaped with her hands. She looked so alive, so full of joy, just like Jasmine in the pictures Rebecca kept hidden in her drawer. Rebecca's carefully constructed walls shattered. She sat down right there at the hostess stand and cried. Ugly, gasping sobs she'd been holding back for 3 years. Jinwoo sat beside her, not touching, just present. When she finally looked up, he signed slowly, clearly. "Grief shared is grief survived." Through the window, she saw Lee Min sitting in his car across the street, watching. When their eyes met, he nodded once. Not a threat, but an acknowledgement. They were both trying to protect people who'd already lost too much. That evening, Rebecca typed into the translation app, "Would you and your son like to have dinner? Real dinner, not just me serving you." Jinwoo's smile could have lit the whole city. The dinner never happened. Marcus called at 11 p.m., his voice shaking so badly Rebecca could barely understand him. "Sis, something's wrong. There are guys watching our building. They spray-painted something on the side. Says, 'Park's debt comes due,' and 'We know about the waitress.' What the hell does that mean? Are you in trouble?" Rebecca's blood turned to ice. She was standing in her kitchen, still in her work uniform, the translation app open to a message from Jinwoo confirming Saturday dinner. "Stay inside. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone." "Rebecca, you're scaring me." A photo came through. Her old apartment building, the words slashed across the brick and red paint like a wound. "We know about the waitress." Her phone buzzed again. Another photo from Marcus. Korean shop owners on his block boarding up windows. An elderly woman crying on the sidewalk. The message, "This started 2 days ago. Everyone is terrified." Rebecca's hands shook as she dialed the number on Lee Min's card. He answered on the first ring. "They're targeting my neighborhood," she said without preamble. "Marcus sent photos. Your name is all over the graffiti. They're threatening Korean families. They know about me." "Victor," Lehman's voice was granite. "West Side Serpents. He's been looking for leverage." A pause. "Where's your brother now?" "Home, our old apartment in South LA. "Give me the address." "No," Rebecca's voice cracked. "I'm not dragging Marcus into your world. This is exactly what I was afraid of." "Rebecca," Lehman's tone shifted, urgent but controlled. "Victor doesn't care if you want to be involved. You already are. The moment you showed kindness to my father, you became visible. And in this world, visibility means vulnerability." The doorbell rang. Rebecca froze. "Don't answer it," Lehman said, somehow knowing. "Look through the people. Tell me what you see." 2 men in leather jackets stood in the hallway. One of them knocked, casual and patient. The other held his phone up, showing her a live video feed. Marcus's building, men positioned at both exits. "We got your message," the one man called through the door. "Just want to talk about your new friends. Nothing scary, unless you make it scary." Rebecca's throat closed. This was the nightmare she'd run from, the same casual violence that had taken Jasmine, now circling Marcus because of her choices. I'm 10 minutes away, Li Min said in her ear. Do not open that door. They're watching Marcus. I have people moving to him now, but I need you to trust me. Rebecca slid down against the door, phone pressed to her ear. Through the wood, she could hear the men laughing. I don't trust anyone, she whispered. Then trust that I won't let Victor use you to hurt my father. That's enough for now. Jinwoo's estate was nothing Rebecca imagined. She'd expected cold marble and security cameras, a fortress that matched Li Min's controlled exterior. Instead, the traditional Korean-style home was filled with warm wood and soft light, artwork covering every wall, watercolor landscapes of mountains and rivers, all signed with Jinwoo's careful brushstrokes. He paints when he can't sleep, which is most nights, Li Min said, following her gaze as they entered. Marcus had been moved to a secure apartment across the city, protected by two of Li Min's most trusted men. Rebecca had fought it for hours before exhaustion and fear won out. Now she stood in Jinwoo's entryway with a hastily packed duffel bag, feeling like she'd crossed into another dimension. Jinwoo appeared from the kitchen wearing a paint-stained apron, his face lighting up when he saw her. His hands moved quickly. Welcome, you're safe here. He's been cooking all afternoon, Li Min translated, insists you need a proper meal. The kitchen table was covered in dishes, kimchi jjigae, japchae, perfectly grilled mackerel. Jinwoo gestured for her to sit, already preparing a plate. Rebecca's eyes burned. No one had cooked for her since Jasmine died. Over dinner, Li Min's phone buzzed constantly with updates. Victor's men had pulled back from Marcus's neighborhood, but the serpents were regrouping. Intelligence suggested something bigger was coming. He sees you as weakness, Li Min said as he set down his phone. My father gets close to someone, that someone becomes a target. It's why he stopped trying to have a life outside our world. Jinwoo's hands moved sharply, and Li Min's jaw tightened. He says I'm wrong, that isolation isn't prison, it's prison. Rebecca watched father and son sign back and forth, with their hands flying with the ease of decades of conversation. She caught fragments, Jinwoo arguing that fear shouldn't dictate how we live, Li Min insisting safety comes first. He's right, Rebecca said quietly. Both men turned to her. I spent 3 years thinking if I stayed invisible, I'd be safe. But I wasn't living. I was just waiting to die without anyone noticing. Li Min studied Rebecca for a long moment. I've been trying to move us away from violence, transition to legitimate business, but men like Victor see change as weakness. They think I've gone soft. Have you? Rebecca asked. I don't know. His honesty surprised him. I want my father to live his last years without fear. I want to sleep without expecting a call that someone I care about is dead. He glanced at Jinwoo. But every time I try to build something better, someone like Victor reminds me why my father taught me to be hard. Jinwoo reached across the table and squeezed his son's hand, then Rebecca's. He signed with his free hand, the world changes one choice at a time. That night, Rebecca lay in the guest room and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in the house, she could hear Li Min on the phone, his voice low and controlled. She'd spent 3 years running from connection. Now she was living under the same roof as the family she'd sworn to avoid. And somehow, it felt like coming home. The call came at 3 in the morning. Rebecca heard Li Min's door slam open, his footsteps pounding down the hallway. She was already awake, had been for hours, unable to silence the creeping dread that had settled in her chest since dinner. Marcus, Li Min said from her doorway, his face ashen in the dim light. They got him. One of my guards was on Victor's payroll. The room tilted. Rebecca gripped the bed frame, her sister's face flashing behind her eyes. Jasmine laughing, then bleeding, then gone. Where is he? We don't know yet. They sent this. He held out his phone. The photo showed Marcus bound to a chair in what looked like a warehouse, his face bruised but defiant. Defiant. The message below read, Trade, the girl for the boy. Pier 19, midnight tomorrow. Come alone or he dies. No cops, no army, just her. Rebecca's hands went numb. This is my fault. I should never have... This is Victor's doing, not yours. Li Min's voice was hard as steel. And I'm not sending you into his trap. He's my brother. And you're... Li Min stopped himself, jaw clenching. You matter to my father. I won't trade one life he cares about for another. Jinwoo appeared behind his son, wearing a robe, his eyes sharp despite the hour. His hands moved rapidly, and Li Min shook his head. They signed back and forth, the argument escalating until Jinwoo slammed his hand against the doorframe. "What is he saying?" Rebecca demanded. Li Min's expression was torn. "He says if we don't meet Victor's terms, Marcus dies. And if Marcus dies, you'll never forgive yourself. He says we have to find another way." Rebecca's mind raced. She thought about Jasmine, about the neighborhood where she died, about the people who'd watched violence consume their streets for years, powerless to stop it. Then she thought about the community center where she'd learned sign language, the network of people who'd known her sister, who were tired of gangs treating their lives as collateral damage. "I'll go," she said, "but not the way Victor expects." Li Min stepped closer. "Absolutely not." "Listen to me," Rebecca's voice steadied, the same determination that had made her approach Jinwoo's table now crystallizing into something fiercer. "Victor thinks I'm alone, powerless, just some waitress who stumbled into your world. But I'm not alone, and this isn't just your fight." She explained her plan, the Wire, Li Min's perimeter team, but also the neighborhood network, the people who'd known Jasmine, who'd organized against gang violence, but never had the evidence or moment to act. Phone cameras, live streams, witnesses who couldn't be silenced or bought. "Public exposure," she said. "Victor can't start a war if the whole city is watching." Li Min stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "You're talking about using yourself as bait. I'm talking about making sure Marcus comes home." Rebecca met his gaze. "I'm done running. I'm done being invisible." Jinwoo moved between them and signed to Rebecca, slow and clear, "You are braver than you know." She signed back, tears in her eyes, "I learned it from you." The warehouse at Pier 19 smelled like rust and salt water and blood that had long since dried into the concrete. Rebecca stood at the entrance, her heart a war drum in her chest. 2 blocks away was the corner where Jasmine died. She could see the faded memorial flowers from here. Coming back to this neighborhood felt like walking into her own grave. The wire taped to her ribs felt impossibly thin. Li Min's voice crackled in her nearly invisible earpiece. "We're in position. 30 seconds and I'm coming in." "No," she whispered. "Give me 2 minutes. Let me get to Marcus." She stepped inside. Overhead lights flickered on, illuminating Marcus tied to a chair in the center of the vast space, his eye swollen shut. Victor Choi leaned against a support beam, flanked by 6 armed men, his smile sharp as a knife. "The Waitress," he said, voice echoing. "Right on time. Where's your boyfriend?" Rebecca walked forward, hands visible. "Let Marcus go." Victor laughed. "You think this is about a trade? This is about sending a message." He pushed off the beam, circling her. "Park thinks he can go soft, play businessman, leave the streets behind. But the streets don't forget, and they sure as hell don't forgive." Rebecca's eyes found Marcus. He was trying to shake his head, mouthing, "Run." But she saw the support beams behind him, the shadows where she knew her people were hiding. Mrs. Chen from the grocery store, DeAndre from the youth center, Jasmine's basketball coach. People with phones, with cameras, waiting. People who felt like Rebecca had been, for years, powerless against the waves of violence that hammered at their community. "You're going to kill us both, then ambush Li Min's people outside, frame him for starting a war." Victor's smile widened. "Smart girl. The serpents take over while the parks burn. Everyone wins, except you." "And what about my sister?" Rebecca's voice broke deliberately, authentically. "Jasmine Williams. She was 16, killed 2 blocks from here 3 years ago, caught in crossfire between the Serpents and the Southside Kings. You remember her?" Victor shrugged. "Collateral. It happens." "Say that again," Rebecca said, her hand moving in a subtle sign. The signal. Light exploded throughout the warehouse. Phone cameras lit up from every shadow, every corner, every broken window. Faces appeared, neighbors, community members, people who'd lost someone to gang violence, all of them recording, all of them streaming live. Victor's face went white. What the? Marcus threw his weight backwards, chair and all, as Rebecca dove. Gunfire cracked, but Li Min crashed through the skylight in a shower of glass, his people flooding from every entrance. Victor's own men lowered their weapons, realizing they were on camera, that every bullet would be documented evidence. "It's over," Li Min said, gun trained on Victor. "The whole city just watched you confess to murder." Rebecca crawled to Marcus, cutting his bonds with shaking hands. Around them, sirens wailed closer. Victor stared at the phones, at the witnesses, at his empire crumbling in real time. Rebecca held her brother and finally let herself weep. 3 months later, Rebecca stood in front of a community garden where a chain-link fence used to be. The memorial wall was covered in sunflowers, Jasmine's favorite. Someone had painted her sister's face in brilliant colors, forever 16, forever smiling. Underneath, the words, Jasmine Williams Memorial Community Center, where healing grows. Jin Woo stood beside her, placing a small bouquet at the base of the mural. His hands moved slowly, deliberately. "Tell me about her." Rebecca's throat tightened. She'd never been able to talk about Jasmine without feeling like she was drowning. But standing here, with Jin Woo's patient presence and Li Min's hand resting gently on her shoulder, the words finally came. She signed and spoke simultaneously, her voice steadier than she expected. She wanted to be a teacher. She used to practice lesson plans on me, making me pretend to be a classroom full of kids. She laughed at terrible jokes, her own clumsiness, the way I burned toast every single morning. Jin Woo signed back. "She would be proud of what you've built here." The community center opened 2 weeks ago. Rebecca managed it full-time now, having left Celestine with Maria's tearful blessing. The building offered sign language classes, conflict resolution workshops, job training, and art therapy. Jin Woo taught traditional Korean cooking every Thursday. Former Serpents members who'd cooperated with police taught at-risk kids about the real cost of gang life. Li Min had redirected the park organization almost entirely into legitimate business: real estate development, import-export, private security consulting. The transition wasn't seamless, but it was real. He told Rebecca one night that he wanted to build something his father could be proud of, something that didn't require funerals. Marcus appeared from inside the center, his arm around a girl from college. His bruises had faded to yellow ghosts. "Sis, the sign language class is about to start. Jin Woo says you're teaching today." Rebecca nodded, but first she turned back to the mural. She placed her hand against Jasmine's painted cheek. "I brought someone to meet you for you," she whispered. "Actually, a whole family. I think you'd like them. They see me the way you always did, like I'm worth something." Li Min stepped closer, his presence no longer terrifying, but grounding. "Ready?" Inside, 15 people sat in a circle: neighborhood kids, elderly residents, former rivals learning to communicate across divides. Jin Woo sat at the front, his hands already moving in welcome. Rebecca took her place beside him. She signed "family" to the class, then pointed to Jin Woo, to Li Min standing in the doorway, to Marcus, to everyone gathered. "Family," she said aloud, her voice clear and certain, "isn't just blood. It's who shows up, who sees you, who stays." Jin Woo signed back, tears in his eyes. "Yes, you are." Li Min caught her hand as she passed, squeezing gently. She didn't pull away. For the first time in 3 years, Rebecca felt completely, courageously alive. The walls were gone, and what remained was everything worth fighting for. Rebecca thought one act of kindness would stay small, just helping an elderly man order dinner, but that single moment of compassion tore down the walls around her heart and changed 2 families forever. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is simply see another person and choose connection over safety. From invisible waitress to community leader, from isolation to family, Rebecca discovered that the love we're most afraid to give is often the love that saves us. 6 months of peace. That's all they got. Rebecca's community center is thriving, Li Min's legitimate business empire is growing, and Jin Woo finally sleeps through the night. But when a mysterious woman arrives from Seoul, claiming to be Li Min's long-lost sister, the one who supposedly died 10 years ago,
everything Rebecca thought she knew begins to unravel. Hied Jin is alive, and she's brought secrets that could destroy the fragile peace between two worlds, or forge an alliance powerful enough to change everything. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a small act of kindness completely change your life? Or have you been the one whose simple gesture